Yeah, good morning, good day, and good evening from wherever you are tuning in to this week's session on the Move to Cloud webinar series. Last week, Tuesday, we have heard what's new in the SAP Cloud, in the new SAP Public Cloud regarding the S/4HANA Migration Cockpit. Today, we will hear what's new in the SAP Private Cloud regarding the S/4HANA Migration Cockpit. Again, we have Claudia and Elizaveta executing the session. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. As usual, we will upload the session and the PDFs after the session at our YouTube playlist. I will add the link later into the chat file. And without further ado, I would hand it over to Claudia.
Lisa.
To Elizaveta. Yeah, Elizaveta. Exactly. Exactly.
Welcome from my side. My name is Elizaveta. I'm part of product management team of Migration Cockpit. And together with Claudia, we will present you some updates for the Migration Cockpit. This is a follow-up session for the session that was held 1.5 years ago about the overview of foundational knowledge about the Migration Cockpit. So this is just an update to what has been released in the last 1.5 years, or mostly in 2025 release. But of course, I will start with a short recap firstly and refresh the knowledge about the Migration Cockpit, what's in scope and what is it about, which approaches it includes. Then I will continue straight away with the staging approach and share more deeply what has been released in 2025 and also share with you some update for the upcoming release 2025 feature pack 1. And then I hand over to Claudia, and she will guide you through the direct transfer approach and what has been released there. And also Claudia will share with you the information about the migration object, especially dependencies. It's a big topic. And at the end, we will have some time for the Q&A. Claudia also will share the further information. Of course, you're free to post any questions you have in the Q&A chat and we will answer them. Sometimes it's even easier to provide you, the link to the specific KBA or to the customer influence. So but at the end, we also will have time to talk about your requests. So let's start. Migration Cockpit. As you know, this is part of the new implementation transition option. So the customers choose the Migration Cockpit when they decide to re-implement to improve the business processes and they want to start from scratch. They have the new system and they configure the data and they also post the data, they migrate the data. So they need to fill the system with the data. In contrast to system conversion where you just reuse the old business processes, or in comparison to selective data transition where you just improve some of the business processes and just have transition of some of the data. The new implementation is the transition where you start from scratch, and Migration Cockpit is a standard tool. This is, or the tool is common as part of SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition subscription, and just need to assign some business roles, and there are no commercialization pricing underline the Migration Cockpit. Exactly. So the tool or Fiori app comprises two migration approaches. The first one is called migrate data using staging tables. This approach has the following logic. You create the staging tables as part of migration project, and you need to fill the data into the staging tables, so they are empty. You can fill these templates with the help of XML or CSV template files that are part of Migration Cockpit, or you can use the tool of your choice, ETL tool of your choice, to fill in the staging tables, and you do it with a remote database connection. The second approach is more innovative. It came later. It is called migrate data directly from SAP system. And as you can understand from the name, with this approach, you build the RFC connection to your source system, and then you select the data and, of course, map the data and post the data into the S/4HANA system. Of course, there are some prerequisites to which system you can have the connection. And as you can see on the slide, the approach supports the scenarios from ERP, FC, and other systems. And also the model and environment is also available as part of this approach. Exactly, you will see more details about it in the next also slide about the approach, I mean the updates regarding this approach. How the process looks like if we use the Migration Cockpit. So first of all, you start the Fiori app, migrate your data, then you need to select the migration approach, stage and table, so direct transfer. And in the middle of the screen, you see the screenshot from the app. You have different functionalities. You have the list of your migration objects, and you perform step by step the actions that are proposed by the Migration Cockpit. So Migration Cockpit guide you through the migration, and at the end you hopefully will see the migration progress 100% in the green zone, meaning your data has been posted to the system. The data load is API based. It means if you get any errors during the simulation or migration, the errors, they are API based. And also it's a good exercise if you get any errors and you cannot understand the meaning of that. If you create the data manually with Fiori apps, so for example, manage a cost center, you also will get the same errors if your data is inconsistent, the same errors you get in the Migration Cockpit. There are more than 237 migration objects as part of the stage and tables approach, and 260 migration objects available for direct transfer approach. And regarding the process itself in the Migration Cockpit, so first of all, when you open the migration project, you select the migration objects for this project. Second step, you need to get the data somehow. It may be you fill the data into the staging tables with the XML CSV templates, or you select the data as part of direct transfer approach. Then you have possibility to map and transform the data. Then you perform with the simulation, check if the data is consistent also. And then if the simulation ends with 100% success, you proceed with a migration step. This is a Fiori app, no programming skills required, only some technical skills required if you decide to use the migration object modeler, so modeling environment, and you may want to use it, for example, to create new migration objects or to enhance the existing migration object, etc. As I said, this is just a follow-up session. If you're interested in refreshing knowledge or you've never seen this basic sessions about the Migration Cockpit, I recommend you to have a look at it, and we provide the links in our presentation. You can do it after this session. So let's talk about the stage and tables approach, what's new in the latest release for private cloud. So we start with the enhancements for the error handling. If you have worked with Migration Cockpit before, you know, and use templates especially, you know that when you upload the template with your data, if something is inconsistent in the file, you get the error, you open your Excel again, you check the error, you upload the Excel back to the Migration Cockpit, you get another error, so another category of error. And we understand that the customer is struggling with getting errors during the upload and download, and they want to have the list of the errors available. And now the logic for the error check during the file upload has been changed. Now you get errors of different categories at once. I can give an example. For example, you don't have the mandatory field maintained in the template, and at the same time you have duplicates. You get these errors at once in the Migration Cockpit. So you don't need to change the file upload again several times to get all of these errors. The next innovation is connected with the step, is connected with the error check during the file upload, because now when you get the list of errors, you also have possibility to download your file, your template file, which will contain now the separate tab, which is called Messages, where you can check the error messages one by one and even go to the correct cell that you need to change, or where you need to check the data. Yes, if you worked with Migration Cockpit before, you know before you needed to check it yourself in the Migration Cockpit UI and find this data in the template. If you have lots of data, it takes time. So now you just work with your arrows one by one. And for example, as you see on the screen, you go with the first arrow, mandatory field is empty, and then you click to the correct cell and you change your data to resolve this error. Of course, don't forget to delete this messages tab in order to avoid any inconsistencies. But for that, you also get the warning at the top of the template. The next innovation, it is also connected with the error handling. This is more about the correction file. So till now, or till 2025 release, the correction file was available after the migration step. So it means if you migrate the data and you see, for example, in the progress bar, 80% of your migration ended successfully, but 20% of the data is in the red zone, it has not been posted. So you need to work on this data to edit it, upload again. And for that purpose, you have still create correction file after the migration step, where you have only the data that has not been posted, so the data that you need to work on, so you don't need to search it in your source template file. The feature to have this correction file after the simulation has been highly requested, and now it's available also after the simulation step. So you get the errors during the simulation. You also need to work on the data, and now you can also distinguish between the data that ended successfully and ended with the errors. Okay, there have been some changes for the job management in the staging approach. Now you get more performance in there, and also after you upload the data to the staging tables, after you click on the prepare step to work with the mapping tasks, you can influence number of jobs, and after you prepare the data in the staging tables, you get even recommended number of jobs for each of the migration object. As you can see on this screen, you can also adjust these jobs to improve the performance, and this is a big step regarding the migration performance. The next innovation is very small, and it concerns only those who are working with the modeling environment with LTMOM. So now if you made changes in modeling environment and you need to download the CSV template file, you do not need to switch to the Migration Cockpit, to the Fiori app. You can download the CSV file from the LTMOM transaction. A very small change, but for those who are working with modeling environment, it's worth to know. What is coming next for the staging tables in 2025 feature pack 1, which is on 25th of February. There is a change in the XML size file. If you work with a lot of data, you know that the size limitation may be an obstacle, and you need to divide your XML template into several files to be able to upload it to the Migration Cockpit. And before, the combined size of these XML files should be not more than 160 megabytes. And now you can upload, you can convert to the zip file till 200 megabytes file size. So yeah, it's a little bit, a bit of change regarding the size, but still will help you maybe not to split some huge files into the smaller ones. And the links that I provided to the application help, they will be available after the release, so after 25th of February. That's why we have the lab preview also on the slide. And what I also recommend for those who are working with the templates, I recommend to check the blog from my colleague, where she is talking about the adaptiveness of the XML file. So many customers don't know that actually template file is very adjustable. You can delete the structures, you can delete some of the fields if you don't use them. Of course, not mandatory, but you can adapt the file to your needs. And I recommend you to check this blog if you're working with the template files. And the next, what I want to share with you, some changes that are relevant for both staging tables and direct transfer approach. The first change is more about how the migration cockpit looks like. And the first change is also about migration object dependency. So if you've been involved in the project, you know that dependency topic is a huge topic. You need to plan it in advance, which migration objects you use first and which the next. And usually we got questions about how to understand it, and we always refer to our documentation where it's written, especially for the complex migration objects, it's helpful which migration objects should be migrated first and which should be migrated the next. And now in the migration cockpit, when you select the list of migration objects, you see the sequence information. The migration objects, they are divided into several groups. So as you can see on the screenshot, the group 1 is bank and cost center migration objects because they don't have any predecessor, and you can migrate them as first. And then you migrate the business partner because it has one predecessor, and supplier has more predecessors. So this information will help you to work with the migration cockpit more efficiently. Also, in staging tables and direct transfer approach, we can now see the improved guidance. What I exactly mean with that. So in the action list, you can see also now the simulation messages and migration messages. Before we had it as a separate button. When you perform the simulation, you check your messages and you need to find this messages button. But now it is integrated in the action list, so you don't miss it. You don't miss this step, and it's hopefully it will be easier for you to find the messages. Also some changes for the job management. I mentioned for the staging tables, now you can see also recommended jobs, but in general for staging tables and direct transfer, you can see different categories for the jobs used for migration objects, and you can also adapt it the number of jobs as well for staging as well as for direct transfer. There are several migration objects where you cannot increase the number of jobs, but nowadays for 2025, there are only 3 migration objects. You can check this information in the provided KBA, and there are also written reasons why it's not possible. But for the other migration objects, after you prepare the data in the staging tables, for example, or after you selected the data, you can increase the number of jobs for every migration object. And yeah, of course, before the step before you select the data, before you prepare the data, you will see the status. The migration object is not ready for processing. Okay, the application help also will guide you and will give you more information about it. And one of the latest feature that also came with 2025 is also about the job management, and it is more about the server group assignment. So what is the use case behind the choosing the server group assignment? So the customers, they want to perform the migration activities while their employees are working in the SAP system, and they don't want to disturb the system, and they want to choose the separate application server or group of application server. And now it is possible to do it in the migration cockpit. You can also find this option under the job management, and the job management is part of the project overview when you open the project, so easy to find. Yeah, so that was it about the staging tables improvements and staging and direct transfer look and feel. And now I would like to hand over to Claudia.
Yes, thanks, Lisa. Warm welcome also from my side.
Different share.
Yeah, I share. So if you can see my screen, close the Q&A. Okay, I move on with our second approach, the direct transfer, shortly direct transfer approach, and we present the latest features here. I will start with a new app, which can be found also in the data migration section in your Puri library. And here we listen to our users, to our customers, as we got the feedback that the selection is not very visible. What happened in the direct transfer when the selection is running? You know, the direct transfer is taking care about the source data provisioning, meaning the selection will be done by the Migration Cockpit. And now we have an app where you can analyze your selection, meaning if you are missing instances or there are more instances than expected, you can check this for specific instances in this app. So you get more transparency on this data. And if you run into errors, so the one selection is not successful, then the app also supports you in what might be the problem in this. So, and here you see you can create several selection runs, and there are defined 4 steps which run in sequence, and as soon one step is successful, the next step starts. So meaning in the first step is for sure if this instance is existing in the source system, the easiest step, right? And then we move on. Is the selection logic somehow adapted? Is there something adjusted in the extract data from the source system and all the stuff? And you can see for each of the single step, except of the first one, you get an explanation and a hint for a reason. Important to know is, maybe I jump into our documentation in the, this selection is not available for all objects. You can check this in the in our help portal in the overview of the migration objects, and you can here in the columns add a new column and check if the relevant object is supported by this app. Okay. Next one. This is also a lab review, meaning we will introduce this with the next feature pack. Also here, it's about the background about this is the black box of the selected data. We have now introduced an intermediate storage for the selected data running in an direct transfer migration project. This means we provide the possibility that the selected source data are stored in staging tables. It's not like the staging tables approach, but they have a similar structure. So all the data will be stored in staging tables, and they are transparent, and you can check what's in. Yeah, here you have the transparency. You can check the selected data. You have more possibility to clean your data beforehand, that you do not have to do this in the target system. So here you get a better handling of the source data before you run the migration itself. Okay, so you see, maybe I show you in the system. It's better. Okay. let's try to create such a project. Let's see, we make a test for DT, for direct transfer. We go for the ERP scenario. You know, we have different scenarios as we have different source systems available for this approach. You need an RFC connection to your source system. You choose your company code or company codes. And at this point, you already decide, do I need these intermediate storage? Do I need staging tables for one or more objects in this project? And I say yes. And then you need a database connection where the staging tables are stored. And then you see if you run the selection of your migration object, you can decide on migration object level if staging tables are needed or not. So usually you use this for more complex objects, not for simple master data objects. So then you say, okay, and then you can create your project. So let's see how long does it take. So I have test. So, and now you see the objects where you have chosen the staging table storage. They get an information in the brackets behind. The objects without staging tables stay as you know it from the past. And additionally, we have here, as you know this from the staging table approach, also the tables, the staging tables, which will be automatically created in the background, also here visible. That's a different. And additionally, we have here, it's not ready. Maybe we can jump into the already prepared. And here we have now an additional part because we extract our data into staging tables, and if they are approved, confirmed, or whatever, then we transfer them into the migration cockpit, and then the known path moves on. Okay, as mentioned, this is introduced with the upcoming feature pack. So also here, if you click on the link now, it wouldn't work because it's published end of February. Also to check the migrated data or simulated data, we have now included a transfer list where you can check or troubleshoot single instances where you can see what happened in the API, which field is filled, maybe missing, maybe wrong. Here you have additionally more transparency in what's going on. But here the API was already executed. This is on a later stage. Then we have some new features in the LTMOM, in our modeling environment. First of all, we have now the possibility to define a split logic, meaning you have one source record, one source instance, but you want to create multiple targets. For instance, material product, you have only assignment to one plant in your target system. You need this product assigned to multiple plants, so you can define such a split logic now in the LTMOM. Here we define between simple and advanced logic. Simple means you define a number, a strict number of splits. In the advanced split logic, you can also define rules how to split these single instances. We have also a note available for this, and also in the community a blog post where you can find more information about this. This is already available. Then we have a new rule and an event-based rule, which is in the area of field mapping, where you can, for instance, skip a record at a specific event, on a specific event. I can jump into the modeler. You see here we are on the field mapping level in the source table area, and the event is here start of record, and then you can here create your own rule. And you know the information, the documentation for the modeling environment is stored here in the LTMOM itself. So please use the information button to get more insights, more documentation on the single functions. That's why we have also put this information button on each of the slides for the LTMOM. Another rule is the class-based source code rule. Also here you are able to define how your source values has to be transformed. And here you can use a class to define these rules. So you see, you get more flexibility, more possibilities to get impact on how to select, what to select, and how to transform. How to select is the next part. We have now an where condition editor, and here you are able to write your own coding regarding what is to be selected. And this is something where we have the interaction with our Analyze Your Selection app, where if you run, for instance, some logic here in the editor and something went wrong, then maybe you see where this happens. Good. And finally, also now kind of customizing in the LTMOM for the Migrate Your Data app, for the Migration Cockpit. You can now set in the instance list settings field to display or hide or unhide, that you if you check your instances in the Migration Cockpit, you can see what is important for me, what I need to check on the first view. This can be now maintained here in the LTMOM as well. Okay, this is all for the direct transfer and the LTMOM for the direct transfer. You know, the LTMOM is for direct transfer is a bit different than for staging. That's why we handed it here. Let's see what's happened for the migration object. And as Lisa mentioned, we received also the feedback that especially the preparation of a project, the scope definition of a migration project is sometimes very difficult. What needs to be done at first? Which objects are needed? And here we will also, with the next feature pack, introduce a new app, which is called Explore Migration Objects. And here we have a visualization of how the migration objects are connected, where are the dependencies. You can see what is mandatory. You can check directly the documentation. You have a forward navigation for further connected objects. And this is, I can show you in the system as well. You see this is also under the data migration, where we have also the Analyze Your Selection Process app now. And here we have the Explore Migration Object. And here you can jump in, you can put in a keyword, and then you see there all migration objects within the word product will be listed. And then you can jump into the graphic. And here you can play around. You see the connection starting from the product. You can also change the display. You can click on one of the dependent or related objects, and you can jump directly in the documentation, or you can move on and see what is depending on the customer. What is also visible, let me show you this one. If you have a mandatory dependency, you will see this with a different color. This is a more orange one. But you have here also, you have here also a legend where you see what the single lines mean. So this should support you in what is needed, check your processes, and then start here entering your main business objects, and then check what's necessary and what's needed for your data migration. We have also a really good blog post in the SAP community, which is also linked, is already available, because we have this also introduced for public cloud. So feel free to read it. It's a good one. We have also introduced the migration object lifecycle for direct transfer. As you know, we have for staging, we have the release comparison, what is changed, what is new, where we have updates, for instance. And here we have, for the direct transfer, we have also introduced these status and versions. So we have now also the deprecated and retired possibility, which is shown in the cockpit. And we have versions on these objects. And here you get the information if a new version is available. And additionally, if a new version which is mandatory is available. Yeah? New, you can check this, what's behind, is this necessary for my project or helpful, then you can decide by your own. If it's mandatory, then it's probably a bug fix, then you're forced to update your migration object in the running migration project. We have added here a separate chapter in our help portal that you see. We have one for staging table now and one for direct transfer. Okay, this is always important to mention. We have a lot of migration objects, and for sure we have not only new migration objects, but we have also a lot of changes. If the API is changed in the back, or there's a new API available, or whatever, we recommend always to check what has changed. Is this important for you? Is it relevant for you? Are there some new functionalities delivered with single objects which might help you in your migration project? So please check the updates on the migration objects. Yeah, and having said this, I just want to emphasize to check our help portal, our landing pages. We keep them up to date. We add new stuff, new training materials, especially for the staging area in the direct transfer, this intermediate storage, we will provide more trainings and more insights on how to use this and what are the capabilities of this. And this will be published here and also in the community. Please have a look. And we always get the information about missing features, how to request. We have a customer influence session available, not only for the private part, but also for the public part. Feel free to raise there your feature requests for the migration cockpit. Good. I guess we are good to go for Q&A, I guess.
All right. Thank you, Claudia. Let me have a look. I think we have answered most or all of the questions. Some were put in the chat, some in the Q&A box, but they have been all answered as far as I can see.
Good.
Yeah. So that's the moment for the participants to ask further questions. Until then, let me remind you that we will continue in 2 weeks' time. So there won't be a webinar next session, but the next one will be on the 3rd February. And it's all about the topic of the human side of business transformation, mastering organizational change management. So we will have a deep insight into the people perspective within the transformation. And yeah, let me tell you that the recording and the link recording and the PDF will be uploaded at our YouTube playlist. Currently, the uploading from last week's sessions is still pending, but we are working to upload it as soon as possible. Let me just share in the chat again where you can find it, the recording and the documents from last week and this week. They will be uploaded pretty soon. Yeah, also the recording for the public cloud will be uploaded currently. We have a bit of issues and it's still pending, but rest assured the recording of last week's session and from this week's one will be uploaded into our YouTube playlist, which you can find in the link that I've just shared. Okay. Do we have any additional questions? Anyone that wants to speak up or to write something in the chat? That's a moment. Okay. Doesn't look like it. I mean, if you have any other follow-up questions and so on, then please reach out either to Claudia or Elizaveta. We have there a question. Hi, we do not have templates to upgrade driver or carrier relation for module TM.
Oh, this transportation management, right?
Transportation, yeah.
Yeah, indeed, transportation management is not requested so far. And linked to the migration cockpit, I guess they have an own migration approach. That's why we do not cover that much transportation management functionalities. I guess here we need, or you should contact the application how to migrate the data. We are really depending on the LOB, yeah, regarding content, meaning migration objects to be migrated via the migration cockpit. If an LOB, an application has his own migration path, then they are not jumping into the migration cockpit. Yeah, in the private or on-premise environment, we have the flexibility to choose migration path. Yeah.
Okay, we have now some more questions coming in. How about Ariba, SCM, EAM? Do we use the same cockpit for migration?
Where is it? Can't see it.
In the chat, in the Q&A.
Yeah, I need to pick the open one.
With our Migration Cockpit, you cannot, so you can upload the data to SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud, no Ariba. This is something which is out of our scope. We need to contact Ariba colleagues.
Yeah, this is the same for success factors and all the stuff. Here we have different migration approaches in place. Data migration frame seems slow, even sometimes for just testing a few records. Is there any plan improve performance? Yeah, performance may have different reasons. This is hard to say what's behind. We have also we receive different feedbacks from customers regarding migrating data or dealing with data. If you see there's something wrong with the performance, we need to check this in the system, because it's always an individual problem, especially the performance. This is a difficult topic. So if you say it's too slow, there's stuck somewhere in between, then we need to check this by the support team.
I also provide the link to the KBA with some technical, non-technical reasons, and also this component CAL TMC for which you need to open the ticket, and the developers, they are also involved. It's not only the support analyzes it, but also if there is something to improve, the developers, they're also in contact. So it's the right approach to do it, to address the performance.
Yeah. DM to Claudia approach preferable for industry sector clients mainly. Yeah, maybe one word to missing content, especially industry part and so on. In the private part, or even in the on-premise part, you have the possibility to create your own content. You have the migration object modeler. And in this area, you can create own migration objects. You can use your own API. You can use standard APIs which are whitelisted. This is possible. Yeah. And if you say this is missing, then do it by your own. This is not possible in the public cloud, but here in this area, you have the flexibility to do this. And if you say, especially industry content is always missing. And please keep in mind, the Migration Cockpit deals with best practices, with standard processes, and we are not able to cover each and every single process which might be relevant in an S/4HANA system. Just to keep in mind. You have the flexibility to create your own reports or use SCT or whatever. That's why we cannot cover all this stuff. And then we have
the next question. Also about the private and public differences.
SCM master data. We need to ask the SCM colleagues if there's something. If there's something missing, go to the customer influence, especially in the public cloud, and request missing functionalities and also missing content. Yeah, and especially if there's something missing in the public cloud, it's important to go over this channel, but also in the private area, you can use this part. And we received this is our main channel to receive customer requirements.
Of course, in the overall, like when you want to have some new migration objects for, you can create them in private cloud. When you go public cloud, you don't have the possibility to do it. It's always a customer influence request.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe I will provide you the links firstly to the object list for the private and for the public cloud. and also the link to the KBA, how to request the customer influence request session.
Yeah.
How to access the session.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any additional question? Not again, we will hear us in 2 weeks' time when we talk about organizational change management. And you can always reach out to Claudia and Elizaveta if you have any additional questions.
Right.
Can we please not close the session? I provided.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to
Maybe one hint on the last page, on the thank you page slide, is also our inbox, our PM inbox. So if you have any question around the data migration or migration cockpit, then feel free to reach out to this mailbox. This is really monitored, and we answer this as long we have no specific project question. Then indeed maybe consulting is necessary. But question about content, features, handling, feel free to contact us via this mail. And feedback. We love feedback.
Right, yeah, so I see in your answer, Elizaveta, you have added the links
Right.
that are needed. Okay. All right, with that, thank you again, Claudia. Thank you again. We have another question. Sorry for the question about carrier and driver relation. BP module terminus Fana. The load is template XML. Template XML. Can you write that?
Question: carrier and driver relationship in BP. I would propose that you send us a mail in the inbox, and we can have a check on what's needed, because this is currently not clear for me. Relationship business partner module. Okay, yeah. Please contact us in the via the inbox, and we check this. I guess offline. This makes more sense.
Right, I think we are very close to the end. Again, thank you very much, Claudia and Elizaveta, for today's session and also for last week's session. I think that gave a really good insight into the new things that came up with the latest release package for the public and for the private cloud. And would be happy to welcome you at some point again.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for joining, and see you all in 2 weeks' time.